Welcome to the Pod People cast. This story was submitted by a man named Benjamin, who had a close encounter on vacation with his friend. There are several bizarre elements, and we hope you enjoy it. It was 5 years ago this coming summer. My wife and I, along with another couple, rented a cabin in the mountains of Colorado near a ski resort. I had never been there, but was excited about our vacation. We were hoping to become familiar with the area and return in the winter for a ski trip. The cabin was quiet and remote. My friend Mark and I decided to hike into town while our wives stayed behind. We had about an hour's hike, so I grabbed my phone off the charger and a bottle of water. It was around 9 in the morning as we headed out the door. The air smelled crisp and clean. Trees reached into the sky in every direction. Bird songs filled the air. Paradise, I thought to myself. About 3/4 of the way there, I told Mark we should visit the information center in town and pick up some ski literature. Mark told me he wanted to move here, and it would be perfect if he got a dog too. Before I could respond, we noticed an abnormally large flock of birds flying towards us, and going in the direction we'd come from. We should have turned around right then, especially since we laugh at people in horror movies for not listening to their instincts in that same situation. We knew it was weird, but we continued on. A couple of minutes later, a strong breeze came out of nowhere. I looked up, only to see a bright object. It was like I could barely stand as the wind was rushing downward at us. "What is it?" I yelled. Quickly thinking, I grabbed my phone and held it up to take a picture, but it was dead. It was fully charged when we left. The wind was so loud and piercing. Then as I tried looking up while shielding my eyes with my hands, I saw what looked like a white ball spinning around with rays of light coming out of it. It let out some kind of pulse of energy, and then it was just gone. Having composed ourselves, Mark and I surveyed the area. Everything looked normal. But then we smelled something burning, and we noticed the leaves of some trees were singed. I mentioned that I hoped my phone wasn't fried, and tried to turn it back on. Surprisingly, it started up normally. "My phone turned off too," Mark said, as he turned it back on. We agreed to get to town and see what was going on. Soon we were in the little town. We made our way to the visitors center. Mark asked the employee at the center if anything interesting had happened that day. The guy told us, "Nothing much so far." I mentioned the wind to see if anything registered, and he replied, "Well, the wind at this elevation can be pretty intense at times." This had happened close by. Sure, it took 15 minutes on foot, but somebody here must have seen what happened. Anybody we saw acted normal. Then I asked the clerk what time it was. My heart dropped when he told us it was a little after 1 o'clock. I locked eyes with Mark. That walk was only an hour, but we left at around 9 that morning. We were missing almost 3 hours. By this time, the clerk seemed weirded out by our behavior. So we took some literature on the area and headed out. We agreed that we should head back to the cabin. I pulled out my water bottle and broke the seal, but the bottle was bone dry. We walked back the exact same way we came from, but this time we would take pictures of the trees. Making our way back was pretty uneventful, but when we came upon the spot of our incident, everything seemed oddly normal. We couldn't find one scorched leaf on those trees. They were now nice and normal. The birds were singing. Everything was normal. Everything. I noticed a missed call from my wife. They were probably worried because we were gone so long, but when I called her back she just asked if we got lost. I told her we stopped for coffee and lost track of the time. When we got back they were acting normal, so I assumed they didn't see or hear anything. Mark and I decided not to tell our wives, as it would only incite panic. That night as I was washing up, I noticed small burn marks on the back of my hands, and some on my neck. Later on, Mark and I watched the news. Nothing. No storyline about what happened. I don't know why I was expecting anything. We agreed to keep it to ourselves. We never did go back there that winter to ski. I can't get this out of my head, and studying other people's UFO sightings has become a hobby for me. There are a lot in Colorado. What if more people did talk about what they saw? I am of the belief that many people do not share their unusual stories out of fear that people will laugh at them. This is the first time I am telling my story. We thank Benjamin for sharing his story. Do you think Mark and Benjamin were abducted? We're used to hearing certain elements from this story in other people's UFO encounters, such as electronic devices failing and missing time. But why do you suppose his sealed water bottle was empty? Why couldn't they locate any of the trees with scorched leaves? Share your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for listening to the Pod People Cast.